On June 12, 1973, something inexplicable happened at mine number CE in the Donbass. A team of 30 miners descended to the lower level. The depth was 1,200 meters. The elevator returned to the surface empty. It was sent again. Returned empty. A third time. A fourth. A fifth. Always empty. The mine was sealed, the entrance concreted over. All the witnesses were sent to different cities. But 10 years later, someone turned on the elevator, and it began to rise from the depths. My name is Pyotr Gromov, I am a mining engineer. And I was ordered to descend to the place from which no one had returned. What I saw at a depth of 1,000 meters changed my perception of time. Friends, a small request. Support the channel by liking and subscribing. Thank you. We are beginning. It all started with a phone call on Wednesday evening. I was sitting in my office at the Donetsk Mining Institute, checking reports on the status of the operating mines, when Secretary Lyudmila peeked through the door with a serious face. "Pyotr Vasilievich, you have a call from Moscow. The ministry." I picked up the phone. Gromov is listening. "Pyotr Vasilievich," the voice was official, without emotion. "Captain Savelyev. Ministry of Coal Industry, Department of Emergency Situations. Tomorrow at 8 a.m., they are expecting you at the Donetsk office. Bring your documents, protective clothing, and flashlights. It's a 3-day assignment. At home, tell them. Scheduled inspection of the mine." "Which mine?" I asked. A pause. "Mine number 7. Details tomorrow. See you, Comrade Gromov." Beeps. I slowly hung up. Mine number 7. I've heard that name. An old mine on the outskirts of Donetsk, closed back in the early 70s. They said there had been an accident, but no one knew the details, or wanted to know. That evening, I packed my backpack, a knitting needle, a helmet with a flashlight, spare batteries, a compass, a rope, a first aid kit. The usual equipment of a mining engineer. But for some reason, this time my hands were shaking when I checked the flashlight. My wife, Natasha, asked at dinner, "Where are you going?" "A routine inspection," I lied. "I'll be back in 3 days." She looked me in the eyes and nodded. She knew I couldn't tell the truth. 20 years of marriage to a mining engineer had taught her not to ask unnecessary questions. That night, I dreamed of an elevator. It descended into darkness, deeper and deeper, and there was no bottom. Only the darkness sparkled from the cables. I woke up in a cold sweat at 6 a.m. The Donetsk Coal Industry Administration was located in the city center. A gray Stalin-era building with columns and the USSR coat of arms above the entrance. I was led to the 3rd floor, to a small office with curtained windows. 3 men sat at the table. Captain Savelyev, 35, with a military bearing, and Colonel Zhukov, 50. Gray temples and a stern gaze. And another thin man in civilian clothes, who had not introduced himself. On the table lay a thick folder with a red stripe, "Top Secret." "Sit down, Gromov." Zhukov nodded towards a chair. "The conversation is short, but important." I sat down. Zhukov opened the folder. Inside were yellowed documents, photographs, and diagrams. June 12, 1973. He began. An incident occurred at shaft number C. A team of 30 people descended to the -1200 level to inspect a new face. Contact with them was lost after 20 minutes. The elevator was sent down, came back empty. Empty again. 10 times in a row. He posted a photo. An old mine cage, rusty, with barred walls. They sent out a rescue team. 15 people, professionals. 2 returned. 1 died a week later of a heart attack. The second remained silent for a month, then spoke. Zhukov pulled out a typewritten sheet, the interrogation protocol. I quote, We descended and found the team at a depth of 1,200 meters. All 30 people, alive, were sitting by the wall, eating bread. When we called out to them, they looked at us as if we were ghosts. One asked, "Why are you so fast?" We didn't understand. He showed his watch. 20 minutes had passed. We had only just descended, but 3 days had already passed. The silence in the office became deafening. Quote, "What happened to them?" I asked. "We don't know," Zhukov replied. When the rescuers tried to get them up, something strange happened. The miners refused, saying, "Time flies up there, we'll get old." One tried to go up. He started bleeding from his nose and ears. He died in the elevator. The rest were left below. The mine was mothballed. He closed the folder. But 5 days ago, the sensors showed the elevator was working. Someone turned it on, and it was going up. I felt a chill run down my spine. Quote, "You want me to go down there?" "Yes," Zhukov nodded. "You are the best deep mine specialist in the region." A group of 5 people. You are Captain Savelyev, an electrician, a medic, and 1 miner guide. The task is to go down, find out what's going on, and return. Maximum 12 hours down there. And if we don't return? I asked. Zhukov looked me in the eyes. Then the mine will be blown up forever. Quote, "We left at 10 a.m. in an army UAZ, a green giant without identification marks. The group gathered at the control building. Captain Savelyev, silent, was checking the radio and Makarov pistol. Electrician Kuznetsov, about 40 years old, stocky with a mustache, was holding a large suitcase with tools. Medic Larissa Ivanovna, a woman of about 35, calm, with a first aid kit and a stretcher. And the guide, an old miner Vasily, about 60, who worked at mine number 7 until it closed. Vasily was smoking by the car, staring into space. You were there? I asked. In 73rd. He nodded without looking at me. He was. I saw them going down. 30 people joking cheerfully. And then he took a drag. Then the elevator came back empty. And I realized something was wrong down there. Something very wrong. Why did you agree to come back? He looked at me, because my brother was in that brigade, Ivan. He was 32 years old, with a wife and 2 children. They left him there alive. I want to know if he's still alive. We drove for an hour along a country road. Fields and scattered trees floated past the window. Abandoned farms. November in the Don base. Gray sky, cold wind, bare branches. Finally, shaft number 7 appeared ahead. The old Copra building. A tall metal structure with an elevator wheel on top. Rusty, covered in moss. Concrete buildings, broken windows, and overgrown weeds surrounded it. The area was fenced with barbed wire and signs. Danger. No entry, but the gates were open. Quote, Strange, Savelyev muttered. Who opened the door? We got out of the car. Silence. Only the wind and the creaking of metal. I approached the gate. There were fresh footprints on the ground, boots. Several people had passed here recently. The footprints led inside. Quote, Someone's already here, I said. Savelyev took out his pistol. Let's go. We entered the mine grounds. The main building of the mine, a 2-story concrete box with peeling paint and broken windows. Inside was the engine room, where the hoist mechanism was located. The door was ajar. We entered. It was dim inside. It smelled of oil, rust, and damp. Huge wheels, cables, mechanisms, everything was covered in dust and cobwebs. But in the center of the hall was the hoisting machine, a huge drum with a wound cable. And it was working, slowly rotating, humming. The cable went down into the mine shaft. Quote, "Oh, my God," Kuznetsov whispered. "It really works." Savelyev approached the control panel. An old Soviet panel with buttons and switches. The display read -1100. Quote, "The elevator is rising," he said, "another 100 meters to the surface." We froze, looking at the drum. The cable slowly reeled in. The hum grew louder. Quote, "Who started it?" asked Larissa. No one answered. Vasily approached the mine shaft. A round hole in the floor, fenced with railings. From the depths came cold air and sound. The grinding of metal, blows. "There's someone there," he whispered. Display -50. The cable continued to rise. "Get ready." Savelyev raised his pistol. -20, -10, -10. But 0. The elevator appeared from the darkness. An old cage with barred walls, rusty, empty, completely empty. We came closer. There was nothing inside, only old boards on the floor and a note. A piece of paper pinned to the wall. I took it. The handwriting was trembling, hasty. "If you are reading this, do not go down. Time flows differently here. We have been living the same day for 10 years. Ivan Gromov, June 12, 1973. Vasily grabbed the note from my hands. "This is the handwriting, Ivan." His voice trembled. "My brother. He's alive. He's there." The date. I pointed to the paper. June 12. For him, 1 day had passed, but 10 years had passed. Larissa turned pale. A temporal anomaly. Like in the theory of relativity. Time flows differently at different depths. Savelyev looked at me. Descending. I glanced at the note, then at the elevator, then at Vasily. Yes, I nodded. Descending. We entered the cage. Old, cramped, with rusty walls. It smelled of metal and machine oil. Savelyev closed the door. Kuznetsov pressed a button on the control panel inside. The elevator jerked and began to descend. Slowly at first, then faster. The walls of the mine shaft floated past. Concrete, rebar, old fastenings. We were plunging into darkness. I turned on the flashlight, and so did the others. 5 beams of light cut through the gloom. Deeper, deeper. I looked at my watch. 10:45. "Remember the time," I said. "When we get back, we'll compare." The elevator continued descending. A minute, 2, 3. It was getting colder. My breath was turning to steam. "MI -200, Kuznetsov announced, looking at the display. -400. -600. Vasily stood by the wall, clutching the flashlight. His lips were moving. He was praying. -1000. The air became heavy, pressing on my ears. I swallowed, trying to equalize the pressure. -10,000. We've arrived. The elevator stopped with a sharp screech. The door opened. In front of us was a tunnel, wide, about 5 meters high. The walls were rough stone, reinforced with wooden supports. The floor was rails for mine carts, dim lighting, rare light bulbs under the ceiling, and they were burning. "The electricity is working," Kuznetsov whispered. Someone turned on the generators. We exited the elevator. The echo of our footsteps carried through the tunnel. Silence. Complete silence. Only drops of water from the ceiling and a distant hum there. Vasily, he pointed to the right. There was a face where a team was working. We went along the tunnel. The tunnel stretched for about 200 meters. The walls were oppressive, the ceiling was low. I instinctively crouched, although the height allowed me to walk at full height. To the right and left there was a branch, old abandoned workings, and a cold wind blew from them. We reached a fork. Vasily stopped. To the right is the face, to the left is the control room and the residential area. Residential area? I asked again. Here, at a depth of 1.00 meters. Vasily nodded. In the 70s, they built autonomous underground mines in case of war. There were restrooms, canteens, even showers. Designed for a month of work without lifting. So, they could stay here, said Larissa. Let's go right, decided Savelyev. First the face. We turned. The tunnel narrowed. Traces of recent work appeared. Fresh chips on the walls, chalk marks, abandoned tools and quiet, distant, male voices. We stopped. Do you hear? Kuznetsov whispered. Yes. I listened. Someone was talking. We moved on. Carefully, we turned off the flashlights so as not to scare them away. The tunnel led to a large chamber. A face. About 10 meters high, 20 meters wide. The walls were black coal, lamps were burning under the ceiling. And at the far wall there were people, about 10 of them, in work overalls, helmets with flashlights. They were sitting on boxes, eating, talking, laughing. Alive. Vasily stepped forward. Ivan, he shouted. All heads turned to us. Silence. Then one of the miners stood up, tall, broad-shouldered, his face dirty, his beard. He looked at us, not believing his eyes. Vasya, his voice trembled. Is that you, Ivan? Vasily ran to him. The brothers hugged, we came closer. The miners looked at us with bewilderment. Who are you? Asked one. Why so quickly? Quickly? I asked again. We went down in the morning. It passed. He looked at his watch. 4 o'clock? And you're already here? Why? I looked at my watch. 11:10 a.m. What date is it today? I asked. June 12th, answered the miner. 1973, Tuesday. Larissa covered her mouth with her hand. Savelyev slowly lowered the pistol. I took a deep breath. Today is November 18th, 1983. 10 years have passed. The miners stared at me. What? Ivan whispered. We were sitting on boxes in the face. 30 miners looked at us in disbelief. I told you slowly, clearly. On June 12, 1973, you came down here in the morning. Contact with the surface was lost after 20 minutes. The elevator was sent down, returned empty 10 times in a row. Rescuers were sent. 2 returned. One said, you are alive, but time flows differently for you. One of you tried to get up, died of bleeding. The mine was closed. 10 years have passed, but for you it has passed. I looked at their watches, 4 o'clock. Silence. Then one of the miners, the oldest by the look of him, about 40 years old, stood up. You say 10 years have passed. His voice was even, but I heard tension. Yes. So, my son, he is 15 now, right? And my wife, she was waiting for me. I didn't know what to answer. Savelyev intervened. All of you were officially declared dead in year. The families received benefits. The miner slowly sat back down, covering his face with his hands. Another asked, why does time flow differently here? Larissa answered, the theory of relativity. At different depths, under different conditions, time can flow differently. Here, at a depth of 1,200 meters, there is perhaps something that creates a time anomaly, a magnetic field, radiation, or something else. What will happen if we go up? Asked Ivan. I don't know, admitted Larissa. One person died, maybe the rest will survive, but there is a risk. What risk? Your body lives in slow motion. If you suddenly return to normal, your body may not withstand it. Cells will begin to age instantly. The miners exchanged glances. Quote, "So, we're stuck here," someone whispered. Perhaps I nodded. Quote, "But we'll try to find a way to get you out safely." "How long are we here?" asked Ivan. "For us," quote, "I calculated that 10 years is 3,650 days. For them, 4 hours have passed. If this continues, for you, a year will pass in about 21 hours. My God." Ivan clasped his head in his hands. "We live in a noose." "No," Larissa objected. "You live more slowly, but you live." Vasily approached his brother. "Ivan, I will get you out of here, I promise." Ivan looked at him. "Vasya, you have grown old. You have gray hair. 10 years have passed, brother. For you, for me, 4 hours." They hugged. Ivan cried. Savelyev decided. "We need to understand what is happening here. We will inspect the control room and the residential area. Maybe we will find answers." We left the miners at the face and returned to the fork. We turned left. The tunnel led to a metal door. On it was a sign, "Control Room. Entry only with permission." The door was ajar. We went in. A small room filled with equipment, control panels, monitors, telephones, radios. Fluorescent lamps hung from the ceiling, a cool white light. And everything worked. Kuznetsov approached the control panel. The generators were on, the ventilation system was working, and there was lighting throughout the shaft. Quote, "Who turned it on?" Savelyev asked. "A timer." Kuznetsov pointed to the device. It was set to start automatically every 10 years. Someone programmed the system before closing the shaft. Why? Maybe they were thinking of coming back, I suggested. Or did they want to keep the shaft operational? There was a journal on the table. I opened it. It contained entries about instrument readings, time, and system status. The last entry. June 12, 1973. 10 o'clock. Generators operating normally. Ventilation normal. Temperature plus 18 degrees. Contact with the surface lost. The team is not responding. Awaiting instructions. Dispatcher Kovalyov. I looked at the date. This was written on the day of the incident, 10 a.m., 20 minutes after the team descended. Quote, "Where is Kovalyev now?" Larissa asked. We examined the room. There was no one there, but on the floor by the wall there was a sleeping bag, a thermos, and boxes of canned food. Someone had lived here, and on the wall was written in chalk, "Day 1, I wait. Day 2, I wait. Day 3, I wait." There were many inscriptions, huddled together. Then, in a different handwriting, "Time has stopped here. I can't get up, Kovalyev. If anyone finds this, don't stay here. Time sucks you in." "He was here alone," Larissa whispered. The dispatcher remained when the shaft was closed. Quote, "Where is he now?" Savelyev looked around. I didn't know, but I felt uneasy. We left the control room and moved further down the tunnel. After 50 meters, there was another door. A sign read, "Residential Sector A." The door was open. Behind her is a corridor with doors on both sides. Signs, Room 1, Room 2 to Room 20. Barracks style. We opened the first door. Inside are 2 bunk beds, a table, chairs, a wardrobe. The beds are made. On the table is a stack of books and newspapers. I took the top newspaper, Pravda. June 10, 1973. Everything is like in 1973. I said. We walked around a few more rooms. Everywhere is the same. The beds are made, things are in place, but there are no people. Where are they? Asked Larissa, quote, maybe in the dining room? Suggested Kuznetsov. We found the dining room at the end of the corridor. A large room with long wooden tables and stones. The kitchen is behind a glass partition. There are plates with food on the tables. I went closer. Buckwheat porridge, stewed meat, bread. A half-eaten piece of meat on a fork. We just ate. Larissa ran her finger along the edge of her plate. The porridge was warm. Kuznetsov went into the kitchen and returned a minute later. The stove was hot, a pot on the burner. They had been cooking about 20 minutes ago. Savelyev slowly walked around the dining room. Someone lived here, but where were they now? I looked at my watch. 11:45. We've been here for an hour. An hour had passed for us, but for them, Larissa paused. If time flows 2,000 times slower here, 2 seconds had passed for them. Quote, oh, my God, Kuznetsov whispered, we're ghosts to them. We're moving too fast. Suddenly we heard footsteps, quick, multiple. They were running. We turned around. A man stood in the dining room doorway, dispatcher Kovalyov, thin, bearded, and wearing an old horn. He looked at us with wide eyes. Quote, who are you? He whispered. We're from the ministry, Savelyev answered. We've come for the miners. They won't get out. Kovalev shook his head. No one will get out. Time is here. A trap. It holds. I tried to get up 10 times. Each time I turned back. It's safe here. Time flies at the top. There's death. How long have you been here? Quote, I asked. Kovalev looked at his watch. For me, 3 days, for you, 10 years. He laughed. Quietly, madly. I am immortal. Here I will live forever. 1 day for me, 3 years for you. I will live until the end of the world. He retreated into the corridor. Don't leave here. If you leave, you will grow old, you will die. And he ran. We tried to catch up with him, but he disappeared into the darkness of the tunnels. We returned to the face. The miners were still sitting there. For them, 10 minutes had passed, for us, 2 hours. I told them about Kovalev. He's gone mad, said Ivan. 10 years, alone in the dark. Of course he has. Quote, he's right about one thing, Larissa noted. If you climb too quickly, your body might not be able to handle it. You need a smooth transition. How? Quote, Savelyev asked. Climb slowly. Stop every 200 meters. Let your body adapt. How long will it take? For them, maybe an hour. For us, days, weeks. Quote, the miners exchanged glances. We're ready, Ivan said. Better to take a risk than to stay here forever. Okay, Savelyev nodded. Let's start with one. If he survives, we'll raise the others. I'll go first, Ivan volunteered. Vasily grabbed his hand. No, I can't lose you again, Vasya. Ivan put his hand on my brother's shoulder. You waited 10 years. I can't wait another 100. For me, it will be years, for you, days. I have to try, quote. They hugged. We returned to the elevator. Ivan went inside. Larissa gave him an oxygen mask and took his pulse. 120 beats per minute. High pressure. Normal for stress. Raising to -1,000, Savelyev commanded. Stop for 10 minutes. Kuznetsov pressed the button. The elevator jerked and began to rise. We waited. 10 minutes by our clocks. For Ivan, seconds. The elevator stopped at -1,000. Larissa checked his pulse through the bars. 150, breathing rapid, but alive. Next -800. Another 10 minutes. Stop. Check. 180. My nose is bleeding, but it's bearable. -600. -400. -200. Each stop the bleeding intensified. Pulse under 200. Ivan was screaming in pain, but holding on. 0. Surface. The elevator went up. We opened the door. Ivan was lying on the floor, covered in blood, but breathing. Larissa rushed to him. Alive. Pulse 220, but stabilizing. He survived. Vasily fell to his knees next to his brother, crying. Ivan, you did it. You came back. Ivan opened his eyes, looked at the sky. How much has passed? For us an hour, for you an eternity, Ivan whispered. Ivan survived. After 2 days in the hospital, he came to. The doctors didn't understand what happened to him, but he was alive. This was a signal. We could lift the others. Savelyev organized the operation. 8 days of continuous work, they lifted one by one, each slowly with stops. 29 people out of 30 survived. One didn't make it. His heart stopped at -400. His name was Pyotr Semyonov. He was 38 years old. The rest were taken to the hospital. Everyone was checked. Everyone was alive, but aged. During the 8 days of ascent, their bodies had lived for months, wrinkles and gray hair appeared, but they breathed, walked, lived. The families didn't believe it, wives cried, children didn't recognize their fathers, but they returned. We didn't find dispatcher Kovalev. He remained there, in the depths. Alone, living in slow motion. For him, a day for the world passed. Years. The mine was blown up a month later, the entrances were blocked up, the area was fenced off, the documents were classified. But I remember the tunnels, I remember the silence, I remember the faces of the miners who lived one day for 10 years. I remember Ivan's note. Don't go down, time flows differently here. I returned home after 3 weeks. Natasha met me at the door. Quote, "You've aged," she said quietly. I looked in the mirror. There was a wrinkle around my eyes at my temples. I went down into the mine for 12 hours, but it felt longer to my body. Quote, "What was there?" she asked. "Time," I answered. I saw how time stood still. She hugged me. I couldn't sleep at night. I dreamed of tunnels, an elevator, the miners' faces, Kovalev's voice. I am immortal. A month later, Vasily called me. Quote, "Pyotr Vasilievich, Ivan wants to see you." I arrived. Ivan was in the hospital, thin, pale, but alive. "Thank you," he said. "You got us out of there." "How are you feeling?" "It's strange. A day has passed for me, but I see how everyone around me has aged. My son is a teenager, my wife has gray hair. And I remember kissing her in the morning. Yesterday was yesterday for me." He looked out the window. "Sometimes I think maybe I should have stayed." Time passed slowly there. I would have lived for hundreds of years, seen the future, but you would have been alone, I said. Yes, alone, like Kovalev. We were silent. "Do you think he's still there?" Van asked. "Yes, a day has passed for him, for us a month. He will be there forever, perhaps." Ivan closed his eyes. Time is a strange thing. We think it is the same for everyone, but it is not. Everyone lives in their own time. I nodded. It was true. 2 months later, I was summoned to Moscow, the Ministry of Coal Industry. The same office, the same people, Colonel Zhukov, Captain Savelyev. A thick folder on the desk. My report. Gromov. Zhukov looked at me. Good work. 29 people saved. That's a success. One died, I reminded. 1 out of 30. 80% survival is excellent for such an operation. He closed the folder. The mine is destroyed. All participants in the operation signed non-disclosure agreements. The documents are classified for 50 years. The miners' families will receive compensation. And what about Kovalev? Quote, I asked. The dispatcher is officially listed as dead. His family received benefits 10 years ago. But he's alive there. Zhukov was silent. Gromov, do you know what a time anomaly is? I know, I've seen it. Then you understand, Kovalev made his choice. He stayed. For him, a day passes, for the world, years. In 100 years, a week will pass for him. He will be young when we all die of old age. But he is alone. Yes, alone. This is his choice. I looked out the window. Are you planning to go back for him? No, the mine is blown up, the entrances are blocked. It is impossible to return. So he is there forever. Yes, I got up. Can I go? Yes. Thank you for your service, Gromov. I left the office, went down the stairs, went outside. Moscow, winter, snow. I thought about Kovalev alone in the darkness at a depth of 1,200 meters, living one day while the world lives for years, immortal, but alone. This was his prison. 5 years passed. I continued working as an engineer, inspecting mines, writing reports. An ordinary life. But sometimes at night I dreamed of shaft number 7. The elevator, the tunnel, Kovalev's voice. One day Vasily called me. Pyotr Vasilievich, Ivan died, I came to the funeral. Ivan was lying in a coffin, calm, young. He was 32 years old, but he lived only one day after his return. For us it was 5 years, for him hours. His heart gave out. The doctors said, a temporary anomaly damaged the body. The cells were living in 2 rhythms at the same time. It was unbearable. Quote, Vasily stood by the coffin, crying. I pulled him out of there, but he still died. You gave him a chance, I said. He saw his family, his son. That was more than nothing. Maybe I should have left him there. He would have lived for hundreds of years, but he would have been alone. Vasily nodded. We stood in silence. Then he asked, Are you thinking about Kovalev? Yes, he's still there. Yes, for him it's been a week, for us 15 years. He will be there forever, until the end of the world. Quote. Vasily looked at his brother's coffin. Maybe this is hell, to live forever, but alone. I didn't answer, because it was the truth. Now I'm 72 years old. I'm retired, living in Donetsk, writing memoirs. Mine number 7 is still there, abandoned, blown up, forgotten. But I remember the tunnels at a depth of 1,200 meters. I remember the faces of 30 miners who lived one day for 10 years. I remember Ivan, who returned and died after 5 years. And I remember Kovalev, the dispatcher who chose eternity. For him, a month has passed, for us 40 years. He still lives there, eats canned food, walks through the tunnels. Alone, immortal, but lonely. Sometimes I wonder what he feels. Does he know that the world above has changed, that everyone he knew has died or grown old? Or is it still 12 for him? June 1973. Question mark. I don't know, but I know one thing: time isn't constant. It flows differently for everyone. And deep underground, in the darkness, time can stand still forever. This is the story of Shaft number 7, of people stuck in a time loop, of a dispatcher who chose eternity. Officially, the mine was destroyed, the documents were classified, there were no witnesses left. But I remember, and if you ever hear about an abandoned mine where time flows, otherwise, don't go down there. Time does not forgive curiosity. Thank you for watching to the end. Like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Links to other declassified cases are in the description. And in the comments, write whether you believe that time can flow differently. See you in the next story. Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction in the genre of military horror and alternative history. All events, characters, organizations, and locations are completely fictitious. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or places is purely coincidental. This content is provided for entertainment purposes only.